Looking at this list of nominees for Best Novel, I am beginning to kind of be a little bit scared that all of these books are going to be very dark, people making terrible choices. Hopefully this won't be a video of me just not liking every book in this category. Hopefully I can find one that really sinks home. Hello and welcome back to Valerie Geary's Book Nook. I'm Valerie. The Nook has gotten a bit of a makeover. I'm gonna give you a little tour and then I'm gonna chat about the 2024 nominees for Best American Novel. We're talking about the Edgar Awards today. First, let me give you a quick tour of my new bookshelves. Here they are. From far away, you can see we have full built-ins. There's a little desk on one side, the TV in the middle, and then just these gorgeous shelves. I know that I don't have the chairs set up in like a very cool spot where you can actually see the books, but they're a little bit tall. So in today's video, I am going to be reading through the 2024 nominees for the Edgar Award for the Best American Novel. There are 7 nominees in this category this year, which blows my mind. I read through the debut novel category earlier this year. You can watch that video here. You can catch up on what I thought about those books and which book I think is going to win for the debut category. During this video, I'm going to talk about the Best American Novel, and again, at the end, I'll guess which one I think should take home the gold. Because I'm probably going to post this video after the actual awards ceremony, in this video, I will also reveal the nominees for Best Debut and Best American Novel. We will find out together, unless you've already gone and looked it up yourself, which is very possible, and then we'll find out if I guessed correctly this year on who's going to be the winner or if I was way off. So I was talking to a friend this year about how the shortlist gets made, and I was trying to figure this out because the shortlist this year were a bunch of books that I wasn't particularly excited about. Both in the debut category and the best novel category, there are books in here that I would never pick up for myself. And that's happened in the past where I've been like, I don't know if I would have picked this book up if I hadn't read it for the Edgar Awards, but I really enjoyed it. But this year, especially in the debut category, I have found that I'm not really connecting with these books. And so I did a little bit of a deep dive on what goes into making the short list for an award like the Mystery Writers of America Edgar Award. And apparently the Edgar Award shortlists are chosen by a large panel of judges. There is one general awards chair who then picks a judge for each category, and that judge picks 4 more judges, sometimes more. And then those people read through hundreds of submissions that come in throughout the year, and then they decide on a short list together, and then ultimately they decide on the winner. And so of course they aren't reading through all the books that come in, but maybe they pick up a book and read 50 pages and see if they connect with it and then put it down. And these are writers, these are working writers, they are members of the Mystery Writers of America, so they are judging their colleagues and peers, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. And then I just am thinking, now obviously the Mystery Writers of America, when they choose the judges, tries to choose people who read a wide variety of books, people across different demographics. But this year, I don't know what's going on, but I think all the judges and me just don't have the same taste in books and what we think makes good crime fiction, because I am just struggling with every book, and it just could be me this year. So now that we have a better idea of how the short list gets made, let's quickly run through the 7 nominees for the Best American Novel, and then let's get to reading. The first one up is Flags on the Bayou by James Lee Burke. This is a novel set in the Civil War era in Louisiana. James Lee Burke is a staple in the mystery and crime thriller genre. I haven't read anything by him, but he is a big name author who has been around for decades and won many awards. So I'm hoping this will be a powerhouse of a book from a powerhouse of a writer. We'll see. I don't know if the setting is going to be one that I'm going to connect with, especially from a white man. I'm not sure that the Civil War era Louisiana is going to work for me, but we'll find out. The next book on the short list is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. This is a book about a black sheriff, a serial killer, and a small town in Virginia that is ready to combust. S.A. Cosby is known for gritty Southern crime fiction, and I anticipate we're going to be seeing something similar from him in this book that we've seen from his previous books. I have read Razorblade Tears by this author, and this isn't really the kind of fiction that I typically like or connect with. This category could just be full of surprises. I'm trying to hold off judgment until I actually crack open the books. Next up is The Mad Women of Paris by Jennifer Cody Epstein. This is a historical novel set in Paris, in a Paris asylum where a young woman is suffering from amnesia and she falls under the influence of a powerful doctor. She's trying to fight to reclaim these memories, but these memories turn out to be dangerous. This seems like a book about madness, about a women's asylum, about memory, and this one actually does seem like something that I might pick up on my own, so I am looking forward to reading this one. Next up is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. Jessica Knoll's debut, Luckiest Girl Alive, was a breakout hit. I read it several years after it came out, and I didn't really connect with it, but the premise of Bright Young Women sounds like it could be really interesting. This is a novel inspired by the true events of a real-life sorority targeted by America's first celebrity serial killer. I'm going to assume that's Ted Bundy. I think this could be a really interesting book depending on how Jessica Knoll unfolds the story, so I'm looking forward to diving into this one, but with hesitance, with a little bit of caution in my heart. We have An Honest Man by Michael Kurata. This is a thriller set on a small island, I think in May. 7 politicians are murdered on a fancy yacht at sea, and a local lobster man who's also an ex-con becomes the prime suspect. Book number 6 on the list is The River We Remember by William Kent Krueger, another powerhouse of a writer. If you read a lot of mystery crime thriller, I'm sure you're familiar with this name. This book takes place on Memorial Day in Jewel, Minnesota. It's a historical novel. The body of a wealthy landowner is found floating in the Alabaster River, dead from a shotgun blast. The investigation falls to the sheriff of the town, who's a highly decorated war hero, but he's still carrying around a lot of scars, both physical and emotional, from his time in the service. And I'm hoping it will be an interesting character study, exploring the complicated nature of relationships and crimes in a small town. I have been wanting to read a William Kent Krueger book for a while, so I'm glad that this is on the list. I'm looking forward to seeing his style and seeing if he'll be an author that I pick up in the future. Finally, we have from another powerhouse, Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead. Colson Whitehead has won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, I believe. He is not new to the art of storytelling. I haven't read anything by him, but I am looking forward to diving into this one. This is apparently part of the Harlem Saga. I think Harlem Shuffle was the first book. I have not read Harlem Shuffle, and I'm hoping that I don't have to read it in order to enjoy Crook Manifesto. This is a novel about 1970s New York and crime that's happening there, and I think it features one of the characters or several of the characters from Harlem Shuffle. Whew, okay, so that is the full shortlist for the 2024 Best American Novel for the Edgar Awards this year. At the end of this video, I'm going to tell you which book I think should win for Best American Novel. I'll pretend like if I was judging, this is the book I would pick. And then I'll reveal the actual winners, because I have a feeling that, I know for certain that I'm not going to get through this list before May 1st, which is when the actual winners are announced. So we'll be able to go through the winners of both the Best Debut and the Best American Novel together, and you can see my on-camera reaction for who actually wins the award versus who I thought should win the award. Are we ready? We have a lot of reading to do. We need to get started. I'm headed out to meet a friend for lunch, but before I do that, I wanted to check in with you all and chat about Flags on the Bayou by James Lee Burke, set in the Civil War era. I think like smack dab in the middle. It's set in Louisiana. It's not really super focused on the war. The war is kind of on the outskirts. It is more focused on a small group of people whose lives are all kind of intertwining in, I don't really know where this book is headed, and I'm honestly a little bit like on the fence about whether it fits into the crime fiction section at all. I'm about a third of the way through with it. I am actually really enjoying James Lee Burke's style of writing. He is very immersive. He does a great job with getting into the heads and the hearts of the different characters and really putting their voices and their personalities on the page. There is violence in this book and suggestion of sexual violence as well, which, crime fiction can be tricky sometimes. Sometimes I want a light, cozy mystery, and other times I want something darker. And this one is tending toward the darker, but it doesn't feel gratuitous at this point. The characters are all kind of really being honest on the page, which is refreshing. Some of them are absolutely horrible, heinous people, but then you'll find these moments of empathy for them. Yeah, this is just kind of an interesting book, not one that I would have picked up on my own for sure. If this wasn't a nominee for the award, I would have never read this book. But for this one, I am definitely being drawn into the story and into these characters' lives and kind of anxious to see where this is all headed and how these threads are all going to intertwine. But first, let's get some lunch in my belly. I don't really know where this is going still, and we're over 50% of the way through, and it just feels like all these kind of little dots in time, these horrible things that pop up, and then you don't really have any resolution, and these people are still all interconnected, but this is really a story about good, evil, what is okay during war times, these atrocities that occur, the way that war kind of pushes you to be someone that you never thought you would be. I feel like we're getting a lot of short, horrible moments in time and not really seeing the whole overarching themes or ideas yet. This is kind of a difficult book to read, again, in terms of the content. There's violence, there's assault, there's crimes against women, crimes against black people, crimes against enslaved people, and it's during Civil War. And so these people are just not being their best selves. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that James Lee Burke doesn't know how to write, because clearly he does. Flags on the Bayou is clearly a book written by a master, a man who has been writing longer than most of us have probably been alive. Some of his words were absolutely stunning to me. I had to stop, I had to read it again, I had to write it down. And the way that he inserted himself into these different characters, into their heads, and wrote from a place of empathy and interest and terror was all really fascinating. But for me, Flags on the Bayou at the end of the day just wasn't my jam. I think because it's set in the Civil War era, I want to say towards the end of the war, the South is losing pretty badly to the Union soldiers. There are occupations happening. This book is set in Louisiana, and there are Union soldiers occupying many of the cities and raiding plantations, and things are just kind of falling apart for the Confederate Army and for Southern plantation owners. And a lot of enslaved people have been set free, but then are also kind of in this limbo of, are we really free? And so there's a lot of violence, a lot of darkness, a lot of really frustrating moments, because the people that James Lee Burke is writing about, these characters, are not saints. They are often very conflicted, complicated, often making heinous and terrible decisions. However, I feel like that was kind of the point of the book. I don't know his full intent, but to me it seemed like he wanted to take a look at war in terms of how it affects individuals and the chaos of it and the atrocities that are committed and the way that we kind of justify good versus evil, justify the choices that we make during war times. Some ways there was a little bit of a satirical element to it in terms of some of the characters being this larger than life, almost farcical versions of real humans. And then there were also these more tender, touching, very human moments. So it was kind of conflicting for me in terms of, is this a serious book or is this a satire on war? Is it a little bit of both? It really seemed like a lot of the times for these characters, there was really no good choice for them to make. And I think because of that, I had a hard time enjoying the book. Yes, I can see the merit and I can see what James Lee Burke was trying to do with the story, but for me, it just kind of left me feeling sick and a little bit dizzy over this idea of war and what it does to people and how it kind of breaks down the society, the fabric of society and the fabric of a person's character, which again, I think was the point that he was trying to make. I just kind of right now in this era of my life prefer my fiction with a little bit more hope around the edges, and we didn't really get a lot of that in this book. One interesting thing as I was reading this, I was like, is this a crime novel? Is this a mystery novel? And I guess you could argue, yes, war is a crime. It fits into the crime genre pretty well. The people in this book were absolutely committing crimes, but there wasn't, an overarching mystery. There wasn't a lot of suspense. It was just really a very dark and violent book about war, which I suppose fits the genre of crime. I'm a little bit unsure about it fitting into the Edgar Awards, but here we are. So, Flags on the Bayou. We're not off to a very good start with the best novel nominations. I did not really like this one. I definitely understand what James Lee Burke was trying to do here and can appreciate his craft, his mastery, his storytelling, but the story for me it was a lot. It was too much. I didn't like it. I think that if I hadn't been reading it for this vlog to try and determine who I think the winner of this category should be, I would have DNF'd this one. Again, not because of his writing style, just because of the content of the story. It's too violent for my tastes. I started reading Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll 2 nights ago, and I got about 40 pages in, and I believe that in this book they are talking about Ted Bundy. This is not a true crime book. It is a novel inspired by the events that took place in Florida when Ted Bundy attacked a group of sorority women down there. And so far we are seeing from the sorority president's point of view, Pamela, and we have seen her in the future when she gets a very mysterious letter, and then we've seen her in the past the night of the attack, which was very emotional and riveting and really kind of an internal dialogue and internal monologue here of the events of that night and what the effect that had on her sorority, and also the decisions she made and the implications of that for her future. I'm not really sure what the rest of this book is going to look like, but I am invested so far and interested in reading more. Also, this cover, gorgeous. I think this is my winner. I haven't even finished reading the other books, and I think this has to be my winner. I can't see how any of the other books could possibly stand up to this one, but I don't know. I still have nearly the entire pile to get through, so there may be another surprise in there, but wow, this book shook me to my core. Amazing. I did not expect to be so emotionally engaged, so deeply moved by this story based on my past experience with Jessica Knoll, which I guess goes to show that you should never just read one book by an author. You should try them a couple times before you decide whether or not you like them. I guess there's exceptions to every rule. Obviously, there's authors where I read one book and I'm like, absolutely never again. But Jessica Knoll, her first book, I was like, this is challenging. I think she took a lot of risks. Not all of them worked out. But this one, wow. When I finished it, I immediately wanted to go to the first page and start reading it all over again. That doesn't happen to me very often. This book was really nothing like I expected it to be. It was just powerful and a lot of interior emotional exploration. There wasn't a whole lot of violence on the page. There was a little bit, but a lot of it was off screen or just revealed through the emotional landscape of the main character, the main narrators who are involved in this horribly tragic event. The book spans several decades. We start in the future, or in the present day, I suppose, and then we go back to the past to the 1970s when this sorority was attacked by the serial killer. And in the entirety of this book, he is not named, but we know who he is. And that was just a brilliant choice by Jessica Knoll because it just fully removes his power. He still has this very dark shadow over the entirety of this story and the entirety of these women's lives. She was somehow able to just defang so much of him, to take away so much of his celebrity. And she just turns him into this pathetic excuse for a man. And she talks a lot about women during this time in the 1970s, but also women across the decades and how they're not believed, or if they have some kind of past sexual history, it's well, it's your fault that you were attacked. It's your fault that you were hurt. And so she talks a lot about women's rage, and there's just some feminist elements in here, and it was just a really impressive, powerful book. I just really liked how she focused on the women, how she focused on the victims and just gave them back their story, gave them back a voice in a way that we don't normally see with serial killer fiction or nonfiction. And yes, the man in this book is still important. He still is the driver for the violence and for them being the victims, but he is just not the point anymore. It becomes about how they rediscover their own lives and their own power and their own voices. Basically, how their brightness outshined his. So yeah, goosebumps. Absolute goosebumps for this book. I'm head over heels for this book. I want to read it again. What if I just don't read any of the other books on this list and I just read this one again? Can I do that? No, I'm supposed to be reading all of them and trying to decide who the winner is. Right now, this is my top contender. This is going to be a hard book to beat. Charlie and I are out for a walk. It is a beautiful spring day. We are at the end of March. Tomorrow is April, and I can't really believe it. I am very behind on reading through the best American novel category for the Edgar Awards, but I'm really trying. I have just started reading The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. So far, I'm enjoying it. It is set in a small town in Minnesota in 1950s, and a man who is not exactly the favorite of the town has turned up dead in a river, and the catfish have eaten his face off. That's how the book starts. Very exciting. We are following the main character, Brody, who is the sheriff of the town, and he is a war veteran and has some secrets in his past that he is definitely hiding from people in the town, but also from us, the reader. Finding it to be pretty enjoyable. I'm listening to it on audiobook, and the audio narrator is doing a great job of keeping me engaged. He has this really deep timbre to his voice that is rather soothing. There are a lot of sensory details to keep me engaged, and a lot of these side characters that have their own narrations and secrets and things kind of happening in this town. There's definitely some racial tension going on between the people of this town, as well as matters of violence and potential abuse. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how this all unravels. I'm not sure exactly what to say about The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. There was a very pastoral, small town, Western style feel to the storytelling, to the prose. We have a detective who is back from the war. He is struggling with some PTSD. He's investigating a crime where a man's body washes up in the river, half eaten by catfish, and this man is not a favorite of the town, and so people are kind of wanting to kind of sweep the incident under the rug. But this is a town where everybody knows everybody, and there are secrets and incidences and injustices. You have families fighting, you have people fighting over land, you have racism and issues with domestic violence. There are a lot of dark themes in this book, but the writing itself is actually very lovely and lyrical, and just like the descriptions of the county, Black Earth County, are very beautiful and really draws you into the place where this is set. The author draws a really unique an interesting cast of characters, and you come to know these people quite well, and you're rooting for them, you're invested in their stories. And there's an indigenous character in here, Dakota Sioux, and he becomes the main suspect in the murder of the man whose body was washed up in the river, who no one really likes. So there's a discussion of land ownership, a discussion of indigenous politics and the way people are treated. I think this book is set in the early 1950s, right after World War II. And so there's a lot of talk about who deserves to be living and working this land, who deserves to be here. So in terms of what we find in this book, there are definitely some racial epitaphs, some racial slurs that happen in the dialogue of this book. Sometimes the racism is called out by our main characters, sometimes it's not. It is indicative to the time and place that the author is writing about. What happens at the end is a lot of dominoes knocking over, a lot of things that were set up in the beginning coming together, unraveling. This town is just basically starting to devour itself. And one of the characters in here experiences a very terrible assault, and then another character experiences a terrible death, and it just felt a little on the easy side in terms of how the author decided to wrap up the book and how the author decided to kind of brush over some of the rather dark themes of racism and who belongs where and who gets to exist. So on one hand, it was an interesting look into a different time and place. The writing itself really drew you into the story. The setting was lovely in terms of this pastoral farmland, these people taking care of each other. There was a lot of interesting layers from the characters, but overall, I don't know that I can recommend this book in terms of what I saw with the racism and the sexual violence in this book. The sexual violence itself was kind of kept off the page more than on the page, but it did feel a little gratuitous to the plot that was happening. I did like the coming of age aspects of this book. We do have a younger character who gets a narrative voice, and I did like the way we got to see the town and the incidences that happened there from his point of view. It wasn't always just the detective that we were following. It wasn't always just the sheriff's department. We did get to see from a lot of the townspeople, and I think that was a strong point of this book. I'm just not really sure what the takeaway is supposed to be, what the lesson here is supposed to be, because it did feel like the author was trying to give us one, and I'm not sure if it's, bad things happen to good people, injustices are everywhere and we can't really do anything about it, or stand up for what's right and you get killed anyway. I don't know. There was just something off about the ending with this one for me. And now I am halfway through already reading An Honest Man by Michael Kurita. I've been listening to this one on audiobook and then reading the physical copy as well. And again, we have another book about honesty and who's telling the truth and what justice is and what it looks like. In this book, we have an ex-con who has just recently gotten out of prison, and he gets embroiled in a murder investigation. He finds a yacht that is sailing. It's not sailing, it's dead in the water because there's a bunch of dead people on it. And he finds this crime scene, and then he gets wrapped up as a potential suspect. But he's hiding all these various secrets. This book is kind of like an onion where I just keep peeling things back, and like more secrets are revealed and more little complications are added. We also have a young narrator in this book, Lyman, who is experiencing kind of a traumatic relationship with his father, and he has a secret place that he goes to hide, and he gets embroiled in this storyline as well. It's been interesting so far to watch the characters circle around the idea of truth and honesty and evil versus good, and what makes a person right, what makes a person wrong. We'll see how the rest of it goes and whether it goes off the rails at the end, as thrillers are sometimes wont to do. While I wait for my windows to defog a little bit on this fine spring morning, I wanted to hop on and let you know how things are going with An Honest Man. I am very close to being done. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I just have a few more chapters and things are really starting to heat up on this tiny island. What I am really enjoying is kind of the mirroring of the two characters, Lyman, the young man, the young boy, who is hiding his own secret, and our main character, Israel Pike, who has gotten himself involved in a very tangled web. Things have gotten a little bit violent. There have been some scenes where I've had to kind of turn away a little bit, especially in terms of Lyman and child abuse. But I also am just really enjoying the discussion of what makes a man good, what is the right choice versus the moral choice versus the legal choice, and the pressure cooker that both of these characters find themselves in, and the ways that they are trying to stay above the evils of this island. If I wasn't reading through the Edgar nominees for this year, I would have never picked this book up. This is just not the kind of book that I normally read. It's not the kind of style that I normally like. It doesn't call out to me. It doesn't hit all my favorite tropes, my favorite themes, my favorite styles, my favorite characters. And one of the things that I kind of really didn't end up liking about this book was the way that the female characters were treated. They were mostly just kind of side characters there to grow the main male character and change him and have him go through this big arc and become this, big kind of sacrificial character. There were elements I did enjoy. I did enjoy the mirroring of the young boy in here with the ex-con, and how they were both kind of going through their own moral quandaries and own moral journey about what was right and what was wrong. But overall, there were just a lot of things in here that felt a little shallow and ran a little thin and felt a little cliche to me. It's not a book that sunk its teeth into me. It's not one that I'm going to be talking about or really recommending to anybody unless you like Michael Kurita books. It felt very pulpy and just high-paced, high-octane type thriller. So if that's your jam, this could be the book for you. I do not think that this is going to beat out the book that I think and hope will be the winner this year, but it was an entertaining read. I have read 4 out of 7 of the nominees so far this year. These are the 3 that I have left to read, and I think it is, as I'm recording this, April 15th. And I'm really hoping to get through all of these before the award winner is announced on May 1st. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this video up before May 1st. I am currently in the middle of Colson Whitehead's Crook Manifesto, which is interesting in so many kind of layered and unique ways. I'm not sure what I was expecting when I picked this book up. I don't feel like I'm missing anything from not having read Harlem Shuffle yet. So this is the one that I am currently reading. I am switching between the audiobook and the physical book, and the audiobook narrator is amazing. So I don't know if you can hear that beeping, but my tea is ready. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I am about 100 pages into this one, into the second part of this book, and then I have 2 more to finish reading. I'll check back in with you after I've read a little bit more of Crook Manifesto. As it turns out, Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead is actually 3 novelettes or 3 novellas wrapped up in a single book. We are following one single character, Ray Carney. Well, we're not actually following him. He is the connecting element between all these 3 stories. Ray Carney is a furniture salesman. He turned good. He used to be a thief, a man who hawked stolen goods, I think. This is the second book in the Harlem series. I think Harlem Shuffle was the first book. I have not read that one. I think that book is set in the 60s. This is set in 1970s New York. Again, we are following Ray Carney, who is a furniture salesman, and he is trying to make good with his life. He has turned his life around. He's going to be following the law now, except in the very first story, he gets caught up in one last job with a crooked cop, and things just go wildly, madly wrong. Even though I wasn't expecting this to be 3 short stories with an interconnected character, I actually really enjoyed Colson Whitehead's style of writing. This is the first time that I have read anything from him, though he is obviously a very popular author. He has won, I believe, 2 Pulitzers, so I knew going into this one that I was going to be in good hands in terms of finding a writer who knows what he's doing, and Colson Whitehead certainly does. The level of detail in this book, in terms of research, but also just like the way that he sets up New York as a character, the way that he delves into the minds of his characters, the level of detail that he plays with in terms of setting, but also the character's interior landscape, I was just very drawn into these stories. I think this is a strong contender for the winner. Like, I understand why this one was nominated for sure. This is a strong book, a strong crime book. It fits nicely in this genre, and he's doing a lot of different and unique things and kind of examining a different demographic and a different side of New York. So yeah, I think this is a strong contender for me, but we'll see. I still have a couple books to read. While I have you here, I am going to tell you also about All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, which did not go nearly as well for me as Crook Manifesto. I started this right after I read Crook Manifesto, I think, or shortly thereafter, and I did not get very far. I have to be honest with you about this one. This book did not work for me. I was really lukewarm about picking up another S.A. Cosby book to begin with. I read Razorblade Tears, which was nominated for the 2022 Edgar Awards. There were parts of Razorblade Tears that I really connected with. There were some really striking moments, some poignant moments, some deep emotional ups and downs, but it was a really challenging book for me to read in terms of violence. S.A. Cosby is known for kind of his Southern grit noir style, and so it's not coming as a shock. Like, I kind of know what I'm going to be expecting when I'm picking up this book. I've read a book by him. I kind of know his style a little bit, and it's just not one that I really connect with. I think that there's a certain level of visceralness that I don't really like with his writing and with how he kind of dives into the violent nature of these towns and these characters that he's developing. It started out pretty strong. I was very intrigued by the concept of a black sheriff working for this small, I think it's Virginia town. He's kind of having trouble navigating this space of being a cop and being a black man and what that means in terms of upholding the law and also protecting citizens, but also participating in his community as a black man. So that was like a really interesting aspect of the story that I was very much looking forward to. The book starts off with a school shooting just straight out of the gate. We dive into a very violent moment, and then just things just kind of tumble from there. Now, the reason that I put this book down is because that S.A. Cosby was taking us to a very dark place involving children, violence against children, murder, awful, terrible things. And while he was doing an okay job of kind of holding back the lens, we're not necessarily diving too deep into the actions of what was happening with these children, it was just too much for me, and I didn't really want to see where we were headed with it. It is possible that that was just like a red herring and we were going to kind of veer in a different direction, but it didn't really seem like it to me. That seemed to be the main crux of the story. There's a serial killer on the loose in a small town who is killing children, and I just didn't want to do that. Not right now. Not with the state I am in my life. So I am setting this book down. Is this a second book that I haven't finished for this year's Edgar Awards? I know I didn't finish one in the debut novel. I think that there's probably still a lot of literary merit to this book and a lot that could be said if it wins. I just don't want to go into that dark of a place right now with my reading. People read what they want to read. I'm not going to tell you not to read this one. I'm just setting it down for now. I'm going to move on to my last book before I can get this video up and posted, and it is May 1st right now, y'all. It is May 1st as I'm recording this, and I'm not entirely sure when I'm gonna get it posted, but I can tell you that the awards are being announced today, and I promise not to look at them until you are with me. We will do it together, so I'm not gonna peek because I have one more book, and that book is The Mad Women of Paris by Jennifer Cody Epstein. It is set in a women's asylum in historic Paris, and you have women being diagnosed with hysteria and all sorts of other things, and then this very shady doctor that everybody is praising as being like the next big thing, but is he just taking advantage of all these women? I just started this one. I think I'm only a couple chapters in, and the writing is a little bit slow for me right now. I'm not fully being drawn into what's happening. So I'm gonna try and hustle through this one, try to get through it as fast as possible so that I don't delay this video too much longer. It's Sunday, May 5th, and I am doing my absolute best to avoid spoilers of who won the 2024 Edgar Awards. I have about 100 pages, a little less than 100 pages left to go with this book, and then I can find out who won this year's Edgar Awards. I am very excited to find out who the winners are. I'm a little bit on edge with this one. There's a lot of really distressing stuff that's happening to these women in this book, but it's also kind of really interesting, and I think that it is based on a true occurrence, on a true asylum, on a doctor who was treating patients with hysteria, and it seems pretty well researched in a way that's very distressing. So I'm just gonna pop my headphones in and get to cleaning, and I'm really hoping to finish this tonight. I'll be back after I finish reading, and we'll find out who the winners are this year. I have finished reading all 7 of the Best American Novel Shortlist nominees. Not quite all 7. I bailed on one of them. I do think I got far enough to determine, at least for myself, that I would not pick that one as the winner before I look up finally who won the awards and whether or not I was right this year. I want to talk about The Mad Women of Paris, which I finished up last night. And this book was really kind of intriguing in a very specific way. We are taken back in time to 1880s Paris. I think it's around that time, to a women's asylum where women who, for whatever reason, have been brought to this place. Some of them are suicidal, some of them are experiencing trauma, some of them are just dealing with grief and loss of family, and they are brought into this asylum and treated by questionable doctors with questionable medical practices. And this book focuses on a doctor, Dr. Jean-Martin Charcot, who is was a real doctor. So this is based on a true story. I guess Dr. Charcot actually added to the body of medicine in other more beneficial ways, including, I believe, research into ALS and Parkinson's. But when it comes to women, and specifically hysterical women, he did not do such a great job, according to this book. There are a lot of different threads going on in this book, and they kind of all weave together under this guise of madness, under this guise of womanhood, under the umbrella of feminism and what it means to be a woman, or what you could and couldn't do in this time period. The ending was, I felt, very rushed, and I did not get the ending that I wanted or that I thought these characters deserved, but I do think the ending was probably the best for the plot and served the narrative the best. I just was like, "Ah, how dare you? No, this is not how it's supposed to end." I did like this one. I don't think that it supplanted my pick for the winner, which was Bright Young Women, which interestingly enough was also a book about women being treated horribly, in this case being murdered, and then not being listened to and not getting justice and kind of finding their voice and finding their footing. This one was the standout for me in the Best American Novel category. This, Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, is the book that I would pick to win this category if I were judging. Hands down, no questions, this is the winner for me. I don't know what happened this year. I don't know if I was just in a place where I didn't want this kind of fiction, or if just the people who picked the shortlist just don't have my shared taste, but I did not really enjoy reading any of the books on either the debut shortlist or the Best American Novel shortlist. There were two standouts, Golden Gate by Amy Chua and Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, and those are the two that I would pick for the winner, respectively in the debut category and the Best American Novel category. And the other ones were either books that were okay, they were bad, I enjoyed them while I was reading them, but they didn't leave a lasting impression, or there were several that I didn't finish, or books that I pushed through even though I wanted to bail on it very early on or within the first 100 pages, but I was like, you know, it's not fair to judge these books without finishing them, which, lesson learned, yes it is, you can judge a book without finishing it. So I feel like I've been in this kind of stasis during this time as I've been trying to read through the nominees for the debut and the Best American Novel categories, because I'm just like, I don't want to read these books. I want to read the books that are on my shelf or other books that I'm very excited to read. These are just books that I'm kind of gritting my teeth to get through. And I was just so sad by this, because in the past years there have been some really great choices and books that I would have never picked up on my own, but that ended up being really good and favorite books for me. And I was hoping that this year, even though when I looked at the shortlist I wasn't like super excited about it, I was hoping that I would be able to find books that kind of changed my mind, and they didn't. This is the one exception. I thought for sure that I was not going to like this book, and I ended up just being blown away by it. Loved it. I just pulled up the list of them to remind myself what I had read, and I was like, I don't remember that one at all. I don't remember what happened, or I would remember like bits and pieces. So I don't know. Overall, just not a great reading experience for me this time around. Okay, so are we ready to find out if I guessed right on who the winners were going to be this year for Best Debut and Best Novel? In the past, I have guessed wrong. In the past, I have been very shocked and surprised at the winners that were chosen. It would absolutely blow my mind if the books that I picked as winners did not win this year. Except for, I could see Crooked Manifesto making a play. We will reveal who the debut winner is first. So if you recall, the nominees in this category were The Peacock and the Sparrow by I.S. Barry, The Golden Gate by Amy Chua, Small Town Sins by Ken Jaworski, The Last Russian Doll by Kristen Loesch, and Murder by Degrees by Ritu Mukherjee. And my pick for the winner was The Golden Gate by Amy Chua. No, I kid you not. The winner of the Best Debut for 2024 is The Peacock and the Sparrow by I.S. Barry. The book that I did not finish is the winner for 2024. I can't. I cannot with that pick. Like, congratulations to the author. Honestly, like, good job. That did not sound sincere, but I actually do really mean it. Like, that is a big deal to have your book, your debut mystery novel, be chosen. So congratulations to author I.S. Barry for The Peacock and the Sparrow, the book that I couldn't finish. So this is going well so far. I am loving that I am just for however many. And now we will reveal who won the big award, the take-home prize for the Best Novel 2024 Edgar Awards. Let's run through the nominee list first. We have Flags on the Bayou by James Lee Burke, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, The Mad Women of Paris by Jennifer Cody Epstein, Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, An Honest Man by Michael Coriata, The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger, and Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead. Some good choices in here. My pick for the winner would be Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I cannot. I think I should just stop. I should stop reading and guessing because I am really bad at this. I cannot believe this. This is shocking to me. Shocking to me that this book won. I'm not going to keep you in suspense any longer, but Flags on the Bayou by James Lee Burke won. Congratulations, Mr. James Lee Burke, for winning another award. Proud of you. That was a very interesting choice. Not my pick. I cannot believe this book did not win. What? I am just baffled, blown away. I don't understand how people decide what book is going to win the final award. Is there a criteria list? Is there a list of like things that it must meet and achieve? I don't know. Does it need to have certain themes or be experimental in some way, or just like the most distressing book you have ever read? Because both of those books, the two winners for the best debut and the best novel, were very distressing to me. One of them I didn't finish. It was so distressing. The other one I just like had to close my eyes while I was reading it. I don't know, y'all. I just do not know. I understand nothing. I don't know if I should keep going with this series next year. I'm so bad at it. I'd like to think that last year I would have picked Notes on an Execution, which was the winner for last year. That book was stunning. You know what? Notes on an Execution and Bright Young Women kind of have like similar vibes and same kind of themes and treatments, and so I wonder if maybe that's why they didn't pick this one this year, because they'd already kind of picked like a feminist serial killer last year, and so they needed to pick something new, I guess, this year. I would have gone with Crooked Manifesto if that was the case, because that book was experimental. It was a Black experience in New York City during like an era that we don't really see very often, and just like the prose, stunning. Colson Whitehead, but maybe they didn't pick him because he's like a Pulitzer Prize winner and he doesn't need the mystery award. But James Lee Burke is like a solid, he will always, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I need you to tell me if you read any of these books and which one you thought should have won the Best Novel Award and the Best Debut Award for this year. I need you to tell me that I am absolutely not losing my mind here, because I feel like I am. I feel like I need to go spend some time in this asylum with Dr. Charcot to like get my head checked, because all that time I wasted with these books. No, I didn't waste them. I don't know why I'm so mad about this year. Probably because those two books I didn't even enjoy even a little bit. That sounds terrible and mean, but like to each his own. Every reader gets to have an opinion, a subjective opinion on the book, and I clearly am a bad reader. I clearly do not know what the Edgar Award judges are looking for when they pick winners. So here we are, another year, another failed attempt at guessing the winners. I don't know. Talk to me. Tell me that everything's gonna be okay. This has been really fun. I've had a good time being able to connect with you all again this year over the Edgar Awards. I hope you had a good time watching this. I do not know what is gonna be happening with this YouTube channel in the next coming months. I am trying to juggle a lot right now, and YouTube, though I love it, I really do love making book content for all of you. It's very fun for me. It is a very time-consuming process right now, and I don't know that I have the energy, the time to put into it. I'm not gonna have a regular schedule. As you know, if you are here, you know, I just put up a video whenever I feel like it. I know that right now, I just need to pull out a stack of like the coziest mysteries I can find and just bury my head in them, because those books that I just read for the Edgar Awards were a lot. They were a lot emotionally, they were violent, they were distressing. There's a lot happening in those books that I don't know that I was fully prepared for. So I'm gonna go grab a stack of cozy mysteries and just enjoy cozy murder, because that's where I'm at right now. I need to cleanse my brain of dark and twisted themes for a little bit. we'll get back to that eventually. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you will come back the next time I post a video, which may be who knows when in the future. If you have any fun ideas, anything you would like to see from me, leave it in the comments. If you want to yell at me for trashing the books that won this year, you can put that in the comments as well. I clearly just have very different taste than the judges. It would be very fun for me to be on a panel of judges one day. Chat with me. Let me know how your reading is going. Let me know if you read any of these books in the shortlist for the debut or the best novel, and how you liked them. Until next time, which may be a long time from now, but I will be back sometime. We will see when. And until that day happens, when I post another video, I wish you a very happy reading.